Time for a quick video, a big catch-up on a bunch of albums that I haven't gotten to talk about yet. Obviously, just did a Sam Hunt review, just did an Ashley McBride review. This is very poofy. But I want to talk about a bunch of other albums that I've been loving, or at least listening to. Some of them I haven't loved, but this is just a big album catch-up, much like I did a big single catch-up last week. And one of the reasons I want to do this video is just because there is so much music that's been coming out recently, but we've obviously been distracted with the news and with everything going on in the world. And so I feel bad for some of these artists that have worked hard, put together great collections of music, and now it's getting released, but it kind of feels like an afterthought for a lot of people that otherwise might be paying a lot of attention. So these are some great country albums that you might have missed. First album we gotta talk about is Gabe Lee's Honky Tonk Hell.
A foolish pride be gone. Glory, sing Mary, hallelujah, let me be.
This album is excellent. If you walk away from this video only doing one thing, go listen to Honky Tonk Hell by Gabe Lee. I loved his album last year, Farmland. I loved his kind of John Prine-ish, Townes Van Zandt-ish sort of folksy storytelling style. He kind of writes in this poetic way where you have to listen a few times to put together what the story is, and even then sometimes it's up for interpretation. But I think on Honky Tonk Hell, we took a lot of those folksy elements of his music and brought in a southern rock sound. I mean, the lead single is something he co-wrote with Marcus King, and the whole album's got kind of organ and a little bit brasher of guitars and this sort of soulful side that brings the whole thing to life.
Lord knows I've never been afraid to die. I just can't stand the thought of coming clean.
In my mind, this is a way easier record for a general music fan to listen to because you've got upbeat moments, you got downbeat moments, and the poetry is balanced with spunk and swagger and fun. I think Gabe is an expert at delivery. The way he says his lines, kind of with a snarl, kind of with a laugh, make it really fun to listen to. The title track is one I've talked about before. You know I love when he talks about the folk in Nashville writing phony-ass country songs. There's a similar sort of swagger on songs like All Dogs Go to Heaven, where he's describing himself as a dirty dog chasing the ladies. And speaking of ladies, there's a lot of heartbreak on this album. Obviously, Heartbreaker Smile captures some of that vibe. Emmy Lou is kind of the Eveline moment of this record. It's this beautiful sort of wistful song, longing for Miss Emmy Lou. And then there's my personal favorite song on the record, one called Imogene.
If they're still asking after me, I'm working it all out in Imogene.
About basically him going to a town called Imogene and saying, you know, I'm never leaving this place, but then I guess something goes wrong because he says, I'm never going back to Imogene. This song is so good. You get his awesome enunciation, you get the beautiful guitar picking, and it just feels like this kind of Americana on the road highway thing. It's so beautiful. I love this album. I think it is my top album of the year at the moment. If I had to give a number to it, and I'm not going to do that for all these albums, I'd give this like an 8.5, 8.6. It's really good. Then I want to talk about an album from Jessie Alexander.
Now I know I'm a mama dream.
Jessie Alexander is an extremely successful songwriter who has written hits like Turning Me On for Blake Shelton, like The Climb for Miley Cyrus. She's had a million cuts on various country songs, and you might not like all of these songs, but this woman is talented and has saved some of the best songs that she's written for herself. And they are all here on this new album called Decatur County Red.
I could run, but I would run myself to death.
Now, if you are a regular listener to country music, you might recognize a few of these cuts. We've got Damn Country Music on this record, which was the title track of a Tim McGraw album. There's How I'm Going Out, which was the closing track of Dierks Bentley's The Mountain. And then there's one called Country Music Made Me Do It, which was on Carlton Anderson's album. And on this, it is instead a duet with Randy Houser that's got all of this kind of like naughty, dirty, fun rock vibes. She wrote it with Brothers Osborne, so that tracks. And the vocal with Randy Houser is primo. Randy Houser, I'm just on the Randy Houser train ever since Magnolia. Vocally, there's something in this album that's a little bit reminiscent of Ashley McBride to me, and that is a great thing. There's something very plain spoken, a little bit wry about the way she delivers some of the mundane details of life. On songs like Mama Drank, she is just talking about how she needs to touch up her roots and try and keep the whole house together, and now she's understanding why her mama drank, because being a working mom ain't that easy. On other moments on this record, like I Should Probably Go Now, she's given a way more tender, sensual vibe. That song is so gorgeous to me.
I should probably go now.
But then a lot of this record is just about her appreciation for having grown up country and her love of country music. And I love the words she uses to describe that little small town, rural country life. We're not in the Disney World version of tailgate parties here. We're talking about sunburns from hard work, things burning out in the front yard, holes in the screen door, taking the scales off a catfish. It feels so much more lived in, and I think there's something really rooted about the whole album and about the instrumentation. It's all very tasteful, even the drums on this. It's just a stone cold country record from a great writer who I wish would have kind of her moment at center stage in the spotlight instead of always being in the background. But then I want to mention another Jessie. This is a guy. This is Jessie with an E, Jessie Daniel.
Sitting here, feeling low with a lack of inspiration.
Now, I heard about Jessie Daniel from the Hippies and Cowboys podcast and from Saving Country Music, and I really am excited that I checked out his new album, Rollin On. This album is sort of a love letter to the Bakersfield sound. It's like a little jauntier version of the kind of western side of country music, and it feels like that. There's beautiful fiddle on this, there's really fun steel. If you love steel, if you love the kind of bendy wondrousness that it adds into music, this is the album for you. And Jessie Daniel's got a super clear, sort of simple vocal style that doesn't get in the way. Everything is so balanced and lovely on this album.
If you start to swerving and a curving, ain't nothing gonna turn out right.
It has a kind of plucky, upbeat spirit to it. There's kind of a silly song on there called Mayo and the Mustard. This is not weighing in on the debate of our time, whether you should have mustard on your fries. No. Instead, it's about some advice an old barkeep gave him of keep it between the mayo and the mustard, talking about the lines on a road. And there's also kind of a jaunty spirit in songs like If You Ain't Happy Now, You Never Will Be, and Rollin' On, the title track, which is probably my favorite song here. Even towards the end of the album, when you start getting into a little bit more pensive of songs, things like Sam, about a guy that went out west and kind of lost his way and needs to come back home now, and Sons of San Lorenzo, there's that really cool thing that like fiddle and steel can do where you are right on that line of loneliness and confusion, but also sort of hope and a little bit of warmth. There's such good instruments for that reason, and I think those are really effectively captured. There's just something hopeful, really pleasant, really fun about this record. I enjoyed getting to hear this really classy California side of country music. If you are a mainstream fan looking to go more into the indie side of things, and you're a fan of John Party's last record, I really recommend you check out this Jessie Daniel album as well. I also want to mention a few albums that I've already talked about here on the channel and just point you in the direction of those in case you didn't see those videos. The Hailey Whitters album, The Dream, absolutely gorgeous. This girl from the heartland singing about her dream of being a musician. I reviewed that. It's a great album. Go listen to Janice at the Hotel Bar or Heartland. The Brandy Clark album, I really want to just keep bringing attention to because Your Life is a Record is extraordinary. This album has great country vibes, really unusual instrumentation, and excellent songwriting. I'm still loving the song Pawn Shop. I really love the song Apologies. Long Walk makes me laugh really hard. Go check out that album if you want a really mature take on country music. And then there's this record by this group called the Panhandlers, which are constructed out of a number of big Texas acts. This is such a cool love letter to West Texas. The poetry in the words here, the imagery of cactus blossoms and tumbleweeds and cap rocks out in the Texas landscape are beautifully wed to the sort of crazy mentality that living out in the middle of nowhere can give someone. West Texas, in my eyes, is standout. Panhandle Slim is like a gorgeous lullaby. Go check out that record. There's also the John Moreland album, LP5. My favorite songs on this are Harder Dreams and In Times Between. If you like things that are slower, gentler, a little bit more brooding, go check this one out. And if you like things that are way more rockin' and silly and kind of soulful and brash, go check out Tammy Nielsen's recent album, Chickaboom. Tammy Nielsen's making these kind of rockin' spaghetti western soundtracks out in New Zealand. My favorite moment on this album is a big, belty, fiery moment called You Were Mine. Go check out that song. She just blows the roof off near the end of that. A couple other albums I want to talk about. We've got Ingrid Andress with her new album, Ladylike.
Honestly, I swear I'm doing fine.
Ingrid Andress is someone that has intrigued a lot of people with her song More Hearts Than Mine, a really thoughtful, gorgeous ballad about bringing home a guy and being worried that if she's to break up with this guy, he's going to be hurting more people than just her. He's going to be breaking her mom's heart and her father's heart, and such an interesting take on the kind of drumroll tension of a relationship. That sort of thoughtful writing is all over her new album Ladylike, which is a very, very polished and composed and tight 8-song record. There are moments when it feels extremely, extremely poppy and produced just because of the volume of the percussion tracks on this, but then sometimes it also feels a little bit like it's got that classic Nashville sound vibe with swelling strings. The opening track, Bad Advice, even feels a little bit Hawaiian to me, and that's due to some of the gentle steel that goes through this whole album. I think when you've got a voice as bell clear and words as strong as Ingrid Andress's, you could pull back a lot of that production and that would make this a stronger record. I'm always a fan of just kind of taking away. I think less is more for a lot of artists. But I think the storytelling on this album is excellent, and I like that the ways she analyzes relationships, it just feels different. It's not just all about falling in love or breaking up. She gets into these little nuances of relationship on songs like The Stranger.
You play the stranger, I'll play the girl.
Which is about a couple that's really lost their spark. And she starts off the song asking, when's the last time we just looked at each other in the eyes and chose us instead of thinking of ourselves as individuals? And she's wishing they could go back to that bar and just be strangers again and meet and have that sort of interest in one another. I also think the title track of this album, Ladylike, is really, really strong.
Been told I'm not ladylike, but I'm a ladylike. Whoa!
This is the song that should have been When Female by Keith Urban was released, letting a woman describe herself as unframeable and untamable. And it's so interesting because she's saying that, she's a little too controversial or outspoken to be considered ladylike. But then the chorus is just this tidal wave of reasons why she really is a lady. She'll get you kicked out of the Garden of Eden and she'll kiss you like whiskey fire. And there's this imagery of leaving lipstick on a cigarette. I just think she's got a really cool, unique perspective, even though I think that there's nothing especially country besides some instrumental choices on this album. I think the songwriting's really good, but as I've said many times, I think that given the nature of country radio and the reality of major labels in Nashville and their business models being really reliant on country radio, I sort of have a more understanding feeling about, country women currently having a lot poppier of sounds, because I could see this album being successful on like adult contemporary or sort of one of those radio stations that you're allowed to play at your office. 2 more albums I want to mention. There's Katelyn Smith's new one called Supernova.
Sometimes it feels like I'm dying.
Katelyn Smith is someone that I absolutely adore. I think her songwriting is excellent. She's written songs that stuff like I'm Gonna Lose You by Meghan Trainor, Wasting All These Tears by Cassidy Pope, You Can't Make Old Friends by Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. Last year, 2 years ago, she came out with an album called Starfire that is a masterpiece of an album. That album is so good. It's actually on my best of 2018 year-end list. She's got this huge voice on songs like Tacoma, and then there's a key change, and wow, it is just so pleasing to listen to. And on Supernova, she's got the same strong songwriting and really good voice, but I don't feel this album as hard as I felt Starfire. And again, it is a moment when I think all of the bells and whistles in the studio are taking away rather than adding to this album. Katelyn Smith's got such a sultriness in her voice and so much power there that I don't think it really helps to throw layers onto it and kind of have that harmony block of her own voice in some of the choruses here. And I should also say, I think this record is only really meant to be country influenced. It's not really trying to be a standard country record. But she works in the Nashville scene, and maybe if you're a pop listener, you would find this record, feeling really country, but if you're a country listener, you're gonna find it feeling really like a lot more kind of pop rock. Despite my problems with the production, there's still a ton to love here though. Songs like Long Time Coming have a real simmer to them, and I love kind of the explosion of her voice on the chorus there. My favorite track is a pretty subdued one near the end called Midnight in New York City, and then Feel That Way is really sexy as well. You know, I think she does sultry very, very well. I just feel like I want to let that sultriness breathe a little bit more, but I still recommend this album. I still am a huge believer in Katelyn Smith. And I gotta give her props for the commitment to kind of gorgeous, gorgeous album art, and just her whole imaging is so good. Everything about Katelyn Smith just feels expensive, high quality, and intentional. And there's something that's really pleasing about that as a fan, to see, hey, the artist really cares. And then finally, there's an album that I wasn't even really going to talk about because I did not enjoy it particularly. It's the new Carly Pearce album. I really loved the song I Hope You're Happy Now, her duet with Lee Brice. And I think Carly Pearce, on and off, I'm like very intrigued by and think like, wow, you are so musical and interesting, and I know you have this whole Dollywood background, and you've got such a good sinewy voice, and some of your songs are so tasteful, like Every Little Thing. But then other times I'm like, wow, this is some like kind of weird 70s pop overproduced dreck that I really dislike. I really am not a fan of that kind of disco-y vibe in country music. I'm sure that's come through in my reviews over the years. And unfortunately on her new album, I feel like there's a lot less good than there is good. She's got a duet with her husband, Michael Ray, called Finish Your Sentences. And this is supposed to be the kind of sexier, trap beat, really bro-ish song, actually.
Should we go to that bar?
Yeah, you know I got a table for two.
I just find it such a weak point on the album. Feels really trashy compared to a lot of the rest here. Especially because a different song like Lightning in a Bottle is actually sultry, sexy. It feels smooth and cool, not clubbish and trying to be smooth and cool. I love Lightning in a Bottle. I think that's my favorite song here, but I also really like the song Dashboard Jesus, as well as I Hope You're Happy Now. Other moments on here like Call Me, nah, not for me. I don't want to speak very badly about the producer Busby here, considering he lost his life, but just his production style in the country world, coming from pop to the country world, was never my favorite, and that definitely is true of this album as well. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I'm still listening through a few things. Next on my list is Caleb Caudle's album, Tyler Gummersall, Tyler with 2 L's, Gummersall. That's another album I want to check out. Those are the things on my list at the moment. And if you're pissed off that I covered Sam Hunt, well, A, get over yourself, and B, there you go. Here's a bunch of other stuff to listen to as well. It's a big old umbrella of things that are calling themselves country these days. And yeah, I try to cover all of them. So thank you guys for checking these out. Let me know your favorites and let me know any more recommendations you have. Bunch of videos coming up soon. The next ones I think are going to be some videos that I banked a few weeks ago, but they're really fun. I'm excited to edit them and get those posted. Until then, though, I am going to go. I'm going to see if I'm allowed to get my tooth fixed, but if not, you're going to have to be looking at this chipped tooth for a while, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, bye.